Hello everyone, got a new vid coming out. Nothing intended for illegal purposes. Talking about history, opinion, experience. This next video is going to cover a dog that is pretty well known from the past. Not a lot of people talk about him, but a lot of people use the blood. Myself, I never personally had the blood, but I did compete against dogs that did have it, and I saw several that had this blood in them, and I'm speaking of Cotton's Bullet. Now, Cotton's Bullet reportedly was a 14-time winner, 2-time loser. There's not a lot of information on his record, whether those 14 wins were all contracted, or some were contracted, or off the chain, or all off the chain, whatever it was. He was in it for the money 16 times. But one thing that's noted and talked about when you speak of Cotton's Bullet and his record was that out of those 2 losses, one of them, he got best in show for his loss. And after doing a little research, one of his losses, and I think maybe this best in show award given to him for his loss, was against Tudor's Frito. Tudor's Frito was sired by Tudor's Daibo out of Tudor's Dinah, which would make Frito a litter mate to Tudor's White Rock, that great dog who won 5 matches in 1 year's time. Devastating dog, all white with the black ticks on him. Frito was a red dog, which I would say White Rock being white, that's coming from the Dinah side, and Frito, of course, the red color coming from the Daibo side. But he was a very good dog. Jimmer Wimberly matched him, and I think someone else did as well. Frito, I'm speaking of. But it's been said that during his loss, Cotton or someone close to him was offered to buy him if they would pick him up. They picked him up and he bought him. That's how he was acquired. And he was bred several times, produced dozens of offspring. Not a lot, because like I mentioned before, back in the day, dogs weren't really bred that much. Not as much as you think, and certainly not as much as they are today. For example, Daibo was probably bred 10 or 11 times. White Rock, I don't know how many times, not that many. Art, not that many. Tombstone, not that many. Even dogs way in the past, because most of the time the breeders kept the dogs to themselves, and if they did breed outside their yard, it was usually to a friend or a good acquaintance. And sometimes, they had dogs advertised as stud, but traveling cross country or sending dogs back and forth was not as common back then as it was today. So we have a rich history of the breed from not a lot of individuals, even though there's a lot of dogs even back then involved with the breed. John Colby sent dogs all over the world. That much is known from the 1930s. He sent them to Mexico, even to South Africa, all over the U.S., maybe some to Europe. He was a prolific breeder and very popular. His dogs were good dogs. Some were great dogs. But the general consensus back then was that a lot of dogs didn't leave a person's yard, especially if they were a breeder and competitor at the same time, like Tudor was, and Heinzel, and several of those guys. But Bullet, as far as his breeding goes, was sired by Cotton's Reno out of Thibodeau's Ruby. So John Cotton's Reno dog was the sire of Bullet. I forgot who acquired Bullet after he was picked up and sold. That escapes me. Maybe it was John Cotton. My memory's kind of off, even though I researched stuff. Sometimes I forget. I wrote some stuff down, but the important thing is to get the breeding correct. So he's off of Cotton's Reno and Thibodeau's Ruby. Now, if this Thibodeau is the same Thibodeau that I met back in 1983, it would be Mike Thibodeau. I'm assuming it's the same guy. He was heavily involved with the Daibo, Rascal Dogs, Carver Dogs, Butcher Boy, most of the current dogs today, if someone was looking for Butcher Boy dogs or Butcher Boy blood or dogs that go back to Butcher Boy, several of them would be through Mike Thibodeau, through Thibodeau. Right, same thing with Bullet. His bottom side has a lot of Trahan's Rascal in it. And of course, Rascal was half brother to Daibo, both being sired by Hubbard's Bounce. So Cotton's Reno was sired by Hanson's Redman, another reported 14-time winner out of Thibodeau's Ruby. Now Redman goes back to, if you look back far enough, you'll see Tudor's Champion Fighting Peter and Tudor's Blackjack Jr. Blackjack Jr. himself was reported to be a 9-time winner. What's interesting about him is 7 of his matches were documented in a magazine. And there's even pictures of him competing, which was rare for the day. You have to really research to find out the records of dogs. Now, a lot of them were kept, like Harold's Champion Topper and Tudor's Spike and Jeff and Buck. And if you go through like this, that recording of Frito beating Bullet is in there. And there's a lot of dogs. You just kind of got to look through and see what the dog they're talking about. Sometimes they change the name, like Ironhead. Some of his matches were reported with Carver handling them, conditioning them. And in one magazine, at least, Pete Sparks magazine, you'll see he's not called Ironhead, he's called Hardhead. But you can tell it's Ironhead, and that's the dog they're talking about. So there's a lot of dogs like that. Some of them, they don't give any breeding. A lot of the Trahan Rascal dogs, they have no breeding on them. But once more information came out, you see that they're related, or like, for instance, Trahan's Rascal produced that dog, Trahan's Country Boy, and he had a couple of different names. And the story on him was that he was young, he lost his first match, he quit. Then he went on to have a draw in over 2 hours. And then he went on to beat Harold's Champion Topper, who was a son of Daibo, in 16 minutes. Just blasted him out of there. I believe his littermate sister was Ruby, another one Marciano. Either a littermate or a half brother to Country Boy and them would be Trahan's, what was his name? The one that lost to Komasinski's. It's that famous fight. It went 2 hours and 12 minutes. Cajun. Trahan's Cajun. He was either a littermate to them or a half brother to them. Cajun lost to Komasinski's Rocky. That fight was caught on 8mm film. Probably still some copies out there. If you could get a chance to see it, it moves real fast. It's here and there, but at least you see the two dogs. And there's pictures of the match in Pete Sparks magazine. But the point is, some of these dogs, their stuff wasn't recorded, and you have to piece things together. They'll say he's a littermate to this, and he's this way and that way, bred a certain way, and you can kind of put it together. There's several dogs like that. And some of them, their name is there. You just look, you go, oh, wow. I think Ed Crenshaw's Reno, his were recorded. And a lot of them Gimp, and, they're all over the place. But the Cajun Country people, a lot of them, they didn't put their pedigrees out there. So, Bullet being sired by Reno and Thibodeau's Ruby, Cotton's Reno and Thibodeau's Ruby, the top side, Hanson's Redman, his sire, goes back to Tudor's Champion Fighting Peter and Tudor's Blackjack. Thibodeau's Ruby was sired by Trahan's Rascal out of Trahan's Connie. And of course, that's all that Hubbard's GIMP stuff. And the important thing about this breeding, which you don't see a lot of, maybe you saw more of it in the past, but Bullet, being what he was actually an inbred dog. Reno to Ruby is an inbreeding of son to mother. So Reno's out of Redman and Ruby, and bred back to Ruby, who's out of Rascal and Carney. Very interesting for him to be that competitive and being an inbred dog. So Ruby has a lot of Klaus Bud. Bullet also has Kobe blood, going back to Kobe's Rifle, Primo, Galti. My favorite, Kobe's Dime, that kind of stuff. So what you see here, if you kind of look at it, it's not so much the Daibo Kobe cross that Bullet comes from, but kind of a Tudor Kobe cross. It's not actually Daibo in there, it's Rascal in there, who's a half brother to Daibo. So it's kind of the same stuff going back. That old rugged cross where you have the English dogs bred to the Irish dogs. And some of the offspring, if you research them too, you'll see them in a lot of different pedigrees. You'll see them in Carver's pedigrees. You'll see them in Lapissé, a lot of Lapissé pedigrees. Some of the offspring of Reno were Ed Crenshaw Sadsack. You see that all over the place. Lapissé's Bullet too, a very famous producer, son of Bullet. Shabar's Toddy, John Shabar, he was the original owner of Lapissé's Buster from Carver. He died, and then Lapissé got him from Shavar's widow. Then Lapissé died, and actually Patsy Lapissé, Lapissé's wife, is the one who made most of the breedings from the Bullet stuff with the Buster stuff. So Ed Crenshaw Sadsack, Lapissé's Bullet 2, Shavar's Toddy, Taylor's Little Black, 4-time winner. At that time he was competing, he was affectionately called the Bitch Man because he matched several bitches. And Little Black was one of them. She was a 4-time winner. And she lost her 5th match. I believe she lost to Don Mayfield in two hours or something like that. Cable's Ranger. You see Williams Cable's name behind Jocko Cable's Fang. So Ranger was another son of Bullet. Strickland's Bruno and Lady, and Duchess, and Boudreaux's Tony. We were asked the other day about Strickland. I remember the name from the past. Other people on the panel on the 78's Dog Talk on Patreon seen his dogs. I never heard anything bad about them. I heard some of them were extremely good dogs, and the panel confirmed that. I don't know a lot about Strickland. I just want to give him some mention here because the name is not mentioned a lot. So when people ask me, that's what I say. I never met the guy. I don't recall seeing any of his dogs. If I did, his dogs or some bred down from him, I didn't know they were bred that way. But even back then, you heard that name and people talk about them. Those are good dogs. Those are good dogs. And the rest of the panel confirmed it. They were just rough, tough, finish, heart, whatever you want to call it, just real athletic dogs. So I just wanted to give some mention to that. Of course, Boudreaux, Tony, if you look Tony up, you'll see the breedings from there. My familiarity with what would be called the Bullet blood would be coming down through the white dogs. Now, what they are is that old Ed Crenshaw stuff on the bottom, Snow and that stuff from Carver. females, Sandy, Ma, like that, being bred to Moore's champion White Bandit. White Bandit was a 4-time winner, 1-time loser. He lost to Cutter, who was Pat Gomez, rest in peace, way back in the day. Lost to an Eli dog that Pat had, named Any Minute. So if you read the reports on White Bandit, one of them, he says he's a whirling dervish, turn and do all kinds of weird stuff, right? And I've seen the white dogs do some of that. You see that in the Bolio dogs sometimes. Of course, everybody's going to say they're in the Hank dogs and all that. But he had that style sometimes too. And he beat some top competition. His 4 wins. They bred him to the females from the Ed Crenshaw Snowblood, and that's what started the white dogs. So that's where my first introduction to seeing a little bit of the Bullet blood was in the white dogs. So, and those are coming through, Bandit is coming through Ed Crenshaw Sadsack and Elper's Baby. That's his sire and dam, Sadsack and Baby. Bandit produced Randy's Goner, 1-time winner, Steve's Bard, a 2-time winner, Steve's Humphrey. Those breedings bred to, as I mentioned, Ma and Sandy, Petrie's Ma and Sandy. And actually Pat Gomez had Pinhead and Firecracker off of White Bandit. Ma produced Goner, Humphrey, Snowball, when bred to White Bandit. Steve Skeeter, when bred to Bart. And the difference between Bart and Goner is just the females. They're off of White Bandit, different females, and the females are sisters or half-sisters or something like that. Same blood, bred to Bandit. And when bred to Bart, it produced Steve Skeeter, Indian's Little Man, which would be Sonny probably, when bred to Sparkplug, Indian Little Man, Sparkplug. Red Danger would be another one. I believe Red Danger is off of Goner and Sandy. I forget if he's Sandy or Ma. But the thing with Red Danger is he's that white blood on top, which has the bullet on top of that, bred to red babies. I'm sorry. He's Sandy or Ma on the bottom, white blood on the bottom, out of Red Baby's littermate brother, Baby Spike. So it's kind of that Bolio Klaus blood crossed into the white blood. He was a very good dog, 2-time winner, 2 best in shows. One of his wins was over Pepe Le Pew, they called him, and he was out of the litter of Boyle's champion Bobby Jr. and Boyle's Dirty Mary. Red Danger was a very good dog. Used to like the bottom jaw. Very talented, great air, intense, game, rough, real busy. So so the white dogs came from all these breedings, right? From those breedings of Bandit to Sandy and Ma. Basically, that's the foundation. And then it was used crossed with the Heinzel blood, like Champion Bullshit and Champion Alien. And then bred to Bolio Klaus stuff that produced Red Danger. Some other stuff. Later on, they made some other breedings to more Heinzel stuff through Williams, and also crossed with the Red Boy stuff. And what they did in my day is they took that stuff, mostly the Alien stuff is what I saw, Champion Alien, which he would be the white blood crossed with the Heinzel, and they brought Lapasset females and bred it to that blood. That's the way I would say it. So those Lapasset Bullet crosses that were added to the alien stuff were dogs like Champion Nikki, Lycon's Champion Nikki, Scream City's Wino, and I don't think Nikki had the Lapasset stuff in her, but she had the Bullet stuff through White Bandit, through Alien. But Wino did. He had the Lapasset crosses bred to the white stuff. So I lost to Nikki with Percy in 31 minutes, and then I beat Wino in I think 46 minutes with Mr. Rowdy. And there were several of these dogs. I don't remember exactly the breeding, but I think what these guys were doing, like Sam and Al and Scream City, is they were going back to the Lapasset stuff and bringing it up front with the alien blood, which would bring the Bullet stuff up front. Now, it wasn't just all Bullet blood, it was Bullet blood crossed with the Lapasset's Buster stuff. So it was all Lapasset breeding, and most of it that I saw anyways was Lapasset's Bullet, which would be Cotton's Bullet stuff, bred to the Lapasset's Buster, which would be Bully Son Arch Missy stuff. And those dogs were rough, game, intense, had a little bit more ability than just the straight white dogs. So Lapasset's Bullet 2 was out of Bullet and Bessie. Bessie, there's some more Kobe influence. And if you want to say this stuff all goes back to Kobe Leitner, you could say that, right? And with Bullet, you have that Trahan's Rascal stuff. There's that old rugged cross again. So Bullet produced Lapasset's Rascal, Candy, Bully Bob, Caesar, Joker, Cummings, Twinkles, and I'm assuming this is the same Grady Cummings that had the pork farm, had the heavy Eli stuff from Boudreaux, and I'm just thinking he incorporated it the same way that the Lapassets did with Buster. He crossed the Bullet stuff with the Bully Son stuff, if you want to put it like that, or the Eli stuff. That's why they did. And the Lapasset's Buster blood with the Bullet blood produced dogs like Lapasset's Black Belle, Ruth, Wick, Whitney's Cleo. The dog I mentioned earlier, Lycon's Champion Nikki, was Champion Alien and Copper. She was a double Garner bred female, which would make her double White Bandit, double Bullet. Because White Bandit, he's basically line bred Bullet, top and bottom. He's on both sides. So that's how I would look at it. Wino, again, best in show winner, who lost the second match to Mr. Rowdy. He was Champion Alien and McCree's Higgins. And through Higgins is where you get that Bullet and Buster blood coming through. So it's basically a white blood Lapasset cross. Bullet 2 and Bullet blood came through Higgins. If you want to look up Wino, some of his offspring were Wino Jr., Chris's Margarita, Petrie Smokey, Floyd Gianni. Bill Petrie was the one who acquired those females off of Snow. They were bred to White Bandit. So you have, honestly, it's a lot of Kobe stuff with the Trahan's Rascal. So I hope this answers some of the questions about Bullet. It gives people something to do, maybe do a little research. Bullet, of course, was from the Carolina area. And I would guess, being from that area, the Lapassets, I think they were from South Carolina. But if you did enough research, you would probably see them cross with the Red Boy Jocko stuff and, some more Eli stuff. They were known to be rugged, hard mouth, strong, and I could see how somebody incorporating that. I believe Rastaman, part of our podcast, he mentions some of those crosses, the Lapase with the Buster and Grand Champion Miss Rage, and that stuff from Doc Whitney. So, I'm not an expert on it, but I did do some research on it, and I gave my point of view from dogs that I saw and competed against that had the the Cotton's Bullet and the Buster Blood Cross. And like I said, they were solid dogs. Good bone, thick, and just rugged looking. Tough, big teeth, things like that. So I hope you enjoyed the vid, and thanks for your support. More on the way.